We're waiting for the room to clear. I kind of feel like I'm in church, so if anybody does want to move to one of the front pews, that would be okay. Okay, just like my church, we're all sitting there. Okay, we still have some more special presentations. These students will be joining us at the end of the school year, but we do announce their names now so everybody's aware of their accolades. The high school students of the month for September are Nathaniel Lyon and Matthew Vines, and this award is sponsored jointly by the Fredericksburg and Jonestown Lions Clubs, and each recipient will be recognized at a future meeting of the Lions Club, as well as I said, at the end of the year they will be recognized again here for a board meeting. The middle school student of the month for September is Hannah Bayshore, and this award is sponsored by the Northern Lebanon County Rotary Club, and each recipient will be recognized also at a future meeting of the Rotary Club. And unless Haley really changed, and he's oblivious down there, but that's Haley's usual seat where our solicitor is sitting. So we don't have a report this evening from Haley. Is there any old business to be put before the board? Not, we'll move on to the public input session. And I have two requests to speak before the board this evening. And the first one, how about ladies first? We'll go with Rachel Sekelic, and her topic is public input policy and transportation.
Rachel Sekelic, 109 Blackberry Lane. Apologize, the germs of the school year hit our house already. Tonight I wanted to let the board know that the decision to make the changes to the public input policy came at the worst possible moment. As far as President Warner's comments about the attorneys who had to inconveniently sit through hours of public comments, I'd say you left those meetings worried about the wrong problems. Those attorneys were there for a LRTA, which I believe is a significant tax break. The community who pay their taxes wanted their voices heard, and you treated them as if they were insignificant in the inner workings of the school district. Your comments later about how after 3 minutes the speaker begins to be not so relevant and ramble on was another slap in our face. I think changes to public input being made at any other time wouldn't be such a blatant disrespect. I don't believe for 1 second that PSBA looked through our policies and said, wow, this is horribly off compared to other districts. You really need to change that. However, I do believe you went to them and complained about having to listen to the public and you were inconvenienced with late meetings. This is a part of the job you, as a representative to the public, have. If 5 minutes was too long for your job, you have the option to leave at the end of December because you won't be here. Yes, the school board does make significant business decisions. No one is disagreeing with that. But you cannot be a board member and only see this as a business. You have to also realize that even if 10 people talk about the same topic, you should be looking at the one difference you seem to miss. And that is that each of those speakers were affected differently. So while you are thinking about the important business you have, make sure you don't forget whose money runs that business. In regards to the transportation secretary, I think it's a great first step. Unfortunately, many of the transportation concerns I've discussed with parents goes deeper than just speaking to someone on the phone. Many parents have directly spoken with Matt Zeller and fear their concerns are quickly brushed aside. I know one of my biggest concerns with the transportation is the fact that my son's bus was so full last year I had him ride with a neighbor because I was worried about his safety. I'd like to know if the district has any safety drills the students learn at the elementary level. What to do if there's an accident at the front and the doors won't open. How to safely move students from the front to the back when there's 3 kids in a seat, or how to safely get out of the top of the bus if it's turned over. If the district doesn't have this, is it something we can look into? Thank you.
Thank you for your input this evening, Rachel. And now we'll move on to Nathaniel Finken, and he will be speaking on the 903 proposed amendment.
My name is Nathaniel Finken. I live at 207 East Hazel Street in Jonestown. There are 3 reasons why the board should vote not to ratify the amendments to the public input session. First and foremost, this is entirely unnecessary. This is a solution in search of a problem. At the last 3 board meetings, and we'll make it 4 with this one, there were a total of 7 comments. I'm 4 of them, so maybe I'm too chatty. We don't have a problem with excessive public input. We did have public input in the March, April, and May meetings, and I realize that's when the attorneys from Bell and Evans were inconvenienced. However, the board has the remedy available to simply alter the agenda, to move the attorneys to the front of the meeting, or better yet, to tell the attorneys, maybe this is a lousy time for you to come because there's a room full of really angry people who are going to talk for a while. If you have any ear to the district at all, if you don't, then we call it tin ear, but if you have any idea what the mood of the district is, you would know to alter that meeting. And if you didn't, when you got here, you would see what the room looked like. You have lots of remedies at your disposal. The worst one is to curtail our input, to effectively censor the public. So this is unnecessary. The second reason is that, frankly, President Warner, you don't have the standing to sponsor this legislation. You ran for re-election, you put your name out there, you were soundly defeated. You don't have a mandate from the people to sponsor this legislation. This whole board is turning over in 3 months. This is such a pressing issue. This is so important. Let the new board take this matter up. If the new board wants to curtail or affect public input, let them do it. You're sponsoring legislation they're going to have to live with for 2 years. You're not going to be here. You don't hold the standing of the people. You should be orderly running the business of the district and then leaving because you were voted out. So you don't have the standing. This is lame duck. This is Ford pardoning Nixon after he lost. You see how well that went over. Don't do that. You should frankly take this legislation off the table because you don't have the standing to sponsor it. Thirdly, I'm going to present an analogy. I want you to imagine a cooler full of ice. And you take a cup and scoop the ice out and use that to chill drinks. So imagine you break in a glass. There's broken glass in the cooler. Do you simply pick the shards of glass out of the cooler, then sort of scoop it up and say, here you go, it's fine? No, you throw the whole thing away and you start over. Those that were there at the last meeting witnessed this document, which is still marked up, which is testimony to what I'm talking about here. We didn't even have time, and this was such a mess, we don't even have a clean document to present. It's all marked up. I'm watching people scan their laptops as we go, looking for objectionable language. That's no way to run a district, that's no way to run anything, frankly. So that begs the question, what if no one has said anything? Okay, would this have gone through as submitted with all of the restrictions that everybody found so objectionable? No. This is not the way to do business. This should have been tabled for another month. This should have been started over. There should have been a new, clean draft submitted for people to review. This is what's going to be in our public record. This, with all these lines and markups, this is fruit from a poisoned vine, well from a poisoned well. So for those 3 reasons, the fact that it's unnecessary. Second, President Warner, you don't have the standing to advance it. Third, the process was so hopefully flawed. And let's not forget the 4th. This is still bad. This now calls for 2 rounds of public input, beginning of the meeting and the end of the meeting. So if it's not an agenda item, we're going to make people wait till the end of the meeting, which is going to call people to speak twice. We're now going to have someone, I guess, censor the comments during the first round of public input because if they're not germane to the agenda, they're not going to be permitted to speak. What if they get up and start talking anyway? Are you going to silence them? You're going to shush them, censor them, and send them back to their seats to speak later at the meeting? What if, God forbid, somebody actually hears something during the meeting and wants to speak about it during the meeting? If I recall, in April, we had a genuine demonstration of democracy as people spontaneously came to the front of the room, spoke, and announced their candidacy for your very seats. Whether you agree with these people or not, that was a beautiful demonstration of democracy, one that will be effectively nullified and end forever if you guys adopt this legislation. This is a bad idea. This is bad legislation, born from a bad place. No one should vote yes on this. I encourage all of you to vote no. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input, Mr. Finken. At this time, we'll move to the approval of our consensus agenda. Director Martel.
Okay. Move the consensus agenda. Second.
Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Arnold.
Yes.
England.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Bixler.
Yes.
Snell.
Yes.
Howe.
Yes.
Lum.
Yes.
Martell.
Yes.
Werner.
Yes.
All in favor.
Now now we'll move on to our committee reports. We'll start first with Management Committee. Again, Director Martel.
I move item A, parts 1 and 2. Second.
That's 1 or 2.
1 through 4, I'm sorry.
So you still stand 1 through 4? All right. Was there a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have just a quick question, and it's more just, I guess, a formality. In August, we approved that Don could appoint someone to fill the position in order to get the teacher into position. So, do we still have to formalize this vote, or no? I thought that was
Kind of like a ratify? Is that what
that
you're
was like a
asking?
done deal. It was kind of already done.
We still need to ratify it? Sure. Would our solicitor please speak to that?
That's okay. Did you follow up question? Sorry.
So good. I understand the question. One of these items, I was not at last month's meeting.
Okay.
I understand one of the items involves a motion that was approved last month to authorize the superintendent to fill a position.
That is correct.
And so now it's on the agenda again to be ratified.
Correct.
I think that would be fine if you wish to do that. If you already authorized it being filled, I don't think it's necessary, but since it's on the agenda, I think it would be fine to ratify.
Thank you. Is that okay, Glenn?
So it doesn't have to be on.
That's correct. You've already.
Library.
If I understand the context, the board already approved the hire.
And it says here, effective date to be determined. Is he not currently teaching at the high school?
No, by law, they're can be permitted to be held for 60 days. He's not currently at the high school. That isn't our decision, it's the decision of the previous school district.
So, I understand that. I guess I'm just confused. So, if they're holding him for 60 days, then why did we put him into place? Why did we hire him? Because as we had talked earlier about his hiring, it was this rush to make sure that the kids had a good education, but this doesn't seem to be the emphasis for why
Are you asking, should we have waited the full 60 days till he's done and then start a search? Is that what you're asking?
You know, I think that my initial concern was before that. I think that because of, and I understand, and I think probably do a great job and everything, but just because of the background of this, that it should have waited for this so we could just kind of air it in public so there wasn't any public concern over this. But now I'm not seeing that but I was told that couldn't be done because he needed to get into the classroom, and now I'm not seeing that was really necessary. I'm just kind of clarifying in my head because I was going to go last week.
We follow the same process as normal. There's nothing that's any different. Anybody can hold somebody for 60 days by law. We don't dictate whether somebody does or doesn't do that before they're offered a position.
May I make a further comment? I'm now looking at the minutes from last month's meeting, and now I see how the motion was. There was not an individual listed. So I think in the absence of an individual listed, the board should vote at this point. So that's my clarification based on having looked at the minutes.
And like I say, I think he'll, I'm sure he'll do a good job. I'm not disputing that. It's just kind of the way, and we're at this point in the position, if you vote against him, you're voting against someone who's got a family and he's not going back there. He severed that tie, so I think we're kind of going forward with it.
You and I had this discussion about did we do due diligence in looking for a person to hire? And I assured you that we did. We actually did probably even more on this one than we would have on the others. Are when she, is it Ms. Nash resigned, we had to wait, what, I think 15 days, is it, before we were even allowed to advertise it. And then upon advertising it, for the longest time, we only had one applicant. And if you do check around with other districts, the business teacher is a hard find. So, yes, I know you had said to me, why don't we just hire a substitute and wait till spring, wait till the end of the year, wait till whenever. And then I had said back to you, if we're looking at kids first and we want to get a person in the classroom as soon as possible, I think what we did was probably our best move, in my opinion. And I'm sorry I cut you off, Dan.
I just, perhaps you could answer this best, maybe to clarify for Glenn. If we had waited, would the other school district have 60 days from that point?
Correct.
Just from the school year?
It would be 60 days from the night you hire the individual. So if you would have done it tonight, you would have waited another 60 days.
So I'm assuming then that there was, and has been no contact with the other school prior to see if there was any issue with him, if you were going to hire him?
Not sure I understand your question.
Well, I'm just thinking if well, references, but also just, you know, if you're hiring and you're hoping to get them into school, you know, I'm sure that principals and superintendents, everybody talk amongst each other. Was there any kind of discussion?
Plenty of discussion. I can't.
With the school you came from?
Sure. I can't necessarily say one way or the other, but you could probably guess they can't find a business teacher to replace them. That's probably why they kept him.
Well, they had 3 people that applied and they had replaced them. So. Okay.
I have a question. I'd like to understand the whole timeline in this situation, so to add a little clarity. I mean, so you did a good job, but I'd like the A to Z timeline of this hire.
And Josh can address it further, but just briefly, anytime you do that, contractually you have 15 days that you need to wait. You can't necessarily bring anybody in before those 15 days.
So when did the teacher resign?
The teacher resigned. The letter you received, I think, was July 28th. I'm pretty sure that was Kelsey's letter on July 28th, so that puts you well into August. And we didn't have an applicant. He was the applicant that was in for into August, and then we had one other applicant. So basically we had 2 applicants for this position. We do the normal process, which is published advertising of interviews. Both people were interviewed. That includes actually a classroom teacher as well as administrators on that team. They make the recommendation then to me, and that process comes to you.
So you're not part of the interview process?
No, not at all.
And is this how we do all teachers, regardless if we authorize you to hire them in August or if we need somebody in December?
That's correct. Same process.
And out of all the teachers that we hire, I know you don't have the exact number, but how common is it for somebody to be withheld to go to their next job?
Timing like this is more common than not.
And did we withhold for at least a little bit the business teacher that went to Dowstown? Or did we leave him go right away? I thought we held him up.
We might have held him, but it would have maybe only been a week or 2.
A week or 2 is what
In general, it's always my philosophy to get the person out to the job that they applied to. That doesn't necessarily have to be everybody else's philosophy.
So the people that did the interview, which were Josh and then classroom teacher and
Mr. Wanger and Anita Barr from the business office.
and out of the 2, they thought this candidate was the best
Was
candidate.
recommended to me.
I mean, that's the most important to me, that we hire the best teachers for our students, and it sounds like, from what I hear in the process, that we didn't deviate from that.
Any further discussion? Do you have any more questions, Glenn?
No, I just wanted to clear up the
Process.
process. Like I said, I don't at this point see any problem not going forward. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what's going on.
Better to ask.
is currently holding this position here at Lebanon?
In the day-to-day side, I was lucky enough to have the same person for consistency.
Thanks.
Any further discussion on any of the items, 1, 2, 3, or 4 underneath A? Okay, then let's please vote, Mary.
England,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes?
Bixler,
Yes.
Sell,
Yes.
Halp,
Yes.
Lum,
Yes.
Martell,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Arnold.
Yes.
All in favor.
Move item B.
Second.
Discussion? Everybody should have received the description. Everybody had time to read it over?
Now, this time, Dr. Bell can fill the position. Does that mean next month we will need to ratify it?
Yes, I would say there's no individual identified. You should be the one who hires the individual.
Any further discussion? Sounds like a good idea and interesting reading the description of things that have to be included on the lifting, the body movement, everything. It's new to me, but I guess it's needed. Okay, if no further discussion, let's proceed to vote, please, Mary.
Gray,
Yes?
Bixler,
Yes.
Sell,
Yes.
Halp,
Yes.
Lum,
Yes.
Martell,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
England.
Yes.
All in favor.
Move item C.
Second.
Discussion?
Is there compensation for being a mentor? Do you know the amount?
800?
And do they remain a mentor for just 1 year for 800? It does say 15, 16, correct? Sorry, it's $850 to be a mentor for 1 year. Further discussion? Not, proceed to vote, please.
Bixler,
Yes.
Sell,
Yes.
Halp,
Yes.
Lum,
Yes.
Martell,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
All in favor.
Item D.
Second.
Move item D, sorry.
Second.
Any discussion on item D? Not, roll call vote, please.
Sell,
Yes.
Halp,
Yes.
Lum,
Yes.
Martell,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Bixler.
Yes.
All in favor.
And lastly, I move item E.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, I missed the discussion last week.
Go for it, Glenn.
But, I have to say that, I look at Washington sometimes and both sides of the aisle kind of lock horns and they do nothing and get nothing done. And there are certainly, I asked for 3 minutes, but I see there's a compromise for 4 minutes. The major objections that I had, most of the school districts that I've talked to, it is common practice to split them up. Obviously, if something like tonight where we have 2 people that both speak now, why have them wait to the end? But I think that this shows a willingness of both parts of our board to come and see some common ground. So, although when it first was proposed, I was pretty adamant that night, about certain things, but I think everybody kind of saw both sides, and I commend the board for looking at a common sense approach to. Well, at the time I said it was a club to handle this, the battle fly, but you certainly everything seems to be, anything to be better. depending on which side of the way you go, but I think as a compromise, this is a good piece of.
And I think it got a little bit better if you looked at the most recent one. Our second solicitor, your partner, looked at it, and there were 2 additional items. Did you note those, Glenn?
Oh, and the handwritten ones, yes, I did.
Correct.
I think it's always a good idea to look at what other boards are doing and learn from them and improve what we do. And, you know, my concern last week, because I was out of commission and I was coming in on the conversation a little bit late, was the way the public would take it. You know, we're telling them, please come to the meetings, please give us input. No, don't do it, you know, we don't want your input. So I was afraid that it would come across that way, but I do think, you know, even with Mr. Fink, and I understand the frustration with looking at all of the lines, but I kind of liked that because I liked seeing what it used to be and the changes that are being made. And I think it is a good compromise, and I think, you know, we still want to hear from the public, and I think the public can still speak just as much. So I think it is a good thing that they're doing.
I would agree, Rachel. I know last month my vote was not to support this, and there were a lot of considerations that went toward my vote, which we've discussed. The process and getting public input on the policy was important to me as well. I do think we went through a quick but thorough revising and editing of it. I mentioned last week that I did look at the PSBA recommendations and felt like it was certainly in line with that. And to reiterate what you had said, Rachel, also talking to other school boards and seeing the way they run their meetings as well. I feel like this is in line, and I do appreciate the compromise. So tonight I will support it.
Thank you. And I can assure you, and I think all of you on the board know me well enough, that I did not go to the president's meeting and say, oh my goodness, look what I have at home. Actually, I went there and I found out that we were looking pretty good in comparison to some of the horror stories that other board members felt free to tell. Actually, we had to describe our meeting, I described our process, and I was politely asked, gee, does that work for you? And I said, well, it has. And I listened to them, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I should be checking the Pennsylvania School Board Association would. You know, they're much more the experts than any of us sitting around here. And that's what they recommended, and that's what I brought back. And I, too, like it like this, that I can see what we're getting rid of, what we're adding. And actually, that's how most boards that I've ever been on, that's how we lay it out, too, so that you know what you're doing. And Glenn, I know you had reservations at the beginning, and we said, well, this is just the first read, and we threw everything in it we possibly could, so it'd be easy to take things out. And Amy, it might have seemed quick. That's how policies are generally looked over, with a first reading and sharpening it up, having a committee meeting again before the actual voting meeting. So I think we followed proper procedure in looking at this, and I think we gave it due diligence looking over it. Is there any other discussion?
I'd like to, it means a lot to me that Rachel and Amy are supporting it. You guys are candidates. You won a land swell in your election run. You have the support of the committee. You ran as a block, so meaning that you're running together. So that's, I'm assuming that your other groups would support this. So I do think that gives you the support to put this on the agenda and to vote on this. So, and I do think we did as a board compromise. I don't think from where we started with to where we got, and I think Bonnie, you put the icing on the cake with your 4-minute suggestion versus 3 or 5 as we're haggling over it. So, knowing that the vote 5 is behind this, Dave Houck is behind this. So.
And just to clarify, the vote 5 had not discussed this. This is just Amy Sell's vote. And to be truthfully honest, Rachel and I haven't even talked about this.
No, we have not. So I really
Well, I'd
don't know
like
what
your
the
Sight to the future. as
You're advertising for it.
This is not a vote 5 support.
I have no idea what they would say, so this is my opinion.
And problems, and that's one thing, another thing I learned at that president's thing, I think y'all should have gone there. Problems are gonna arise. They will arise. And the best thing you can have is policy in place to best handle it. We're not cutting anybody out of the discussion here. We're putting it in more orderly fashion so that it's actually better absorbed, I believe, by the people that are listening to us. Any further discussion? If not, we're ready to vote. Mary, please.
Hal,
Yes.
Lum,
Yes.
Martell,
Yes.
Werner,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Bixler,
Yes.
Sal.
Yes.
All in favor.
That concludes the management committee's reports, unless, Dan, do you have anything else to add? All right, thank you. Programs Committee, Director Sell.
I'd like to move item A.
Second.
Discussion? And I note this is changed from last week, okay? No discussion, vote please.
Lum,
Yes.
Martell,
Yes.
Werner,
Yes?
Arnold,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Bixler,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Hal.
Yes.
All in favor.
I'd like to move item B as
Second.
Now you may discuss, go ahead, Amy.
This is a similar revision as we discussed last week.
Correct, so some lines have been deleted. Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote please.
Martell,
Yes.
Werner,
Yes?
Arnold,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Bixler,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Lum.
Yes.
All in favor.
I'd like to move item C.
Second.
Sorry.
Whatever that
3-minute thing and we lost your attention, sorry about that.
I was just reading when it was.
Okay,
Thanks.
any discussion? Roll call vote please.
Arnold,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Bixler,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Lum,
Yes.
Martell,
Yes.
Werner.
Yes.
All in favor.
I'll regretfully move item D.
I would regretfully second.
And regretfully, we have to discuss this. We're losing a good guy here.
Yeah, I would like to echo that. Certainly last year we went through the accomplishments of the bowling team. And we get a coach like that that can motivate our students. It's always a huge loss. So I wish him well in whatever he's going to do with his time now that he's not going to work with the bowling, but we certainly appreciated all his years of work.
Well said.
He's still a softball coach.
Okay, then we'll accept this one with the contingency that he can't do the next one.
Sure, pass that along.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
England,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Bixler,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Lum,
Yes.
Martell,
Yes.
Werner,
Yes.
Arnold.
Yes.
All in favor.
I'd like to move item E.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Gray,
Yes.
Bixler,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Lum,
Yes.
Martell,
Yes.
Werner,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
England.
Yes.
All in favor.
And item F.
Second.
We're gonna have to put a little electric shocker there underneath her. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Bixler,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Lum,
Yes.
Martell,
Yes.
Werner,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
All in favor.
That concludes programs.
Thank you, Amy. Do you have any other comments, or does anybody have a question for the Programs Committee? Okay, moving on to property, Glenn.
Okay, I'd like to move item A. Anybody want to, if you want me to separate those out, discussion.
We can get last a little bit longer there for you. Motion on the floor in a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Bell,
Yes.
Howe,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Martell, Warner,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes,
Wixler.
Yes.
All in favor?
that concludes the program, property and service committee.
Thank you, Glenn, and I don't know if chair is the committee, if you're the one that got my Lickdale Bridge in down there, but thank you very much.
I won't take credit for that.
Take
but
credit for
It
it?
is nice. It is nice, but I can't take credit.
So now what happens to our bus routes?
They'll get changed over time, maybe, but only slight changes, because we don't make too many changes right now.
Any other questions for Glenn? Okay, thank you, and let's move on to the superintendent's report.
We have several items on the computer. The traditional enrollment reports. We also have a report that comes from being eligible for financial grant monies. There's another one from the Department of Education identifying our fulfillment of requirements for Part B of IDEA. Then you have the reports from the principals, as well as the most recent newspaper articles. And at your place, you actually have two documents. They're each the same thing. It's the annual report on the educational program, and keep one of those and put one of those in an appropriate spot throughout the community where people would tend to come and see those. We're just getting those hot off the presses today, actually, so we don't have a ton extra, but we will. And in addition to that, that also gets posted every single year on our website.
Pleased to see the numbers as far as the class sizes. Very, very nice. Felt like I had a little more breathing space to read, so it's really nice.
However it happened, if it's partially sixth grade, if it's partially kindergarten, if it's just that's the way the water was, the people drank, whatever, numbers looked great. It was just the one class of a slight concern, and
Still a concern, we're still monitoring and looking at either teacher or me.
The one with my dad.
26.
Oh, okay.
So since somebody brought that up, so a month is a long time in the school year, so what's the game plan? If my understanding right, the first grade class is at 26 today?
Correct.
So.
Same one, it's kind of every other rule when it's really low. First 5 days before school starts, everybody comes in that school, that grade. Which drove it up. So Trevor will be making sure that he continues to monitor that. He's been monitoring that. We have a policy in place for the 26 of what we need to do, and that's what we're working on right now. In addition to that, we're going to obviously look at the needs of the individual needs of the students, and if they so call for splitting that individual class, we're able to do that. Also have room at Fredericksburg to do that.
So you have the authority, have we given you the authority to rectify the problem as seen fit, or?
Well, I can make the recommendation to you. Trevor and I briefly spoke again this morning, but that basically will follow the guidelines that we have in place when we hit 26 that the board has put in place, but you could have a recommendation next month either for a teacher or an aide.
So what are our guidelines?
That we review all the data, that what Trevor's doing. We would take and look at the current positions that we would have as aides. Are there aides needed? How do we split up those students? In the event that we're not able to do that or meet those goals unless we move towards a teacher, then we will make a recommendation of a teacher. So in the meantime, what happens is we have to look at every individual child in that classroom, their needs, behaviorally, socially, intellectually, and that as a first grader, some of that has to do with just growing up. So those are the challenges that we need to continue to monitor, but I would expect, or should say fully expect, by next month you'll have a recommendation which will probably either be a full-time aide or a full-time teacher.
So it's not that our policy is that it hits 26, then we do this, or if it's 27.
Yeah, it's a long list of things.
So it's more complicated than just a
Yeah.
number.
Yes, absolutely.
And what are our other elementary first grade classes around the district?
$17, $18, $19. Oh, I'm sorry. 17, 18. Then you got 25, 18, 18, 17, 18.
So the 25 is the 26?
25 is now 26.
So that's significantly larger than, if I went back to my Sesame Street days, that's the number that doesn't belong.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for Dr. Bell? Oh, I know, it wasn't you. I was just going to ask if the administration has any very quick comments. Things are going well. I'm hearing great reports.
I mean, we're doing well at the elementary. No problem. The beginning of the school went very smoothly. Just a couple minor bus issues, but other than that, it's been going great.
Last year, I heard some complaints with, we had an IU class in one of our schools that was, in the opinion of some parents, very disruptive. Do we have any IU classrooms in our schools this year, and how disruptive or how are they blending into?
We don't have any at the elementary.
Okay.
There's two at the high school.
Yeah, this was an elementary question, so.
Oh, yeah. That particular classroom is in Elko, I believe.
Okay.
Steve, last week you had talked, there was some correspondence from HAC, and I can't remember if it bears repeating or not, or do you remember what you had said? Yeah, your name's Steve. You're looking at me like my kids look at me.
I do remember, I don't remember what I said, but I do remember a little bit about it. But I guess I would recommend people going to our Facebook page, our school Facebook page. Dr. Ski from HEC did a tweet after he was here at the school meeting with Dr. Bell, and some great things are coming. I believe will be announced maybe even in December. Possibilities that we have in aligning with HEC that are really some benefits to our students and even to our parents. The college in the classroom has been a great asset to our family, saving thousands of dollars because of the classes my children have been able to take. And so I have 3 that have graduated, and all of them have taken advantage of that. But we are looking at, Dr. Bell's looking at, maybe even offering an associate's degree by the time our students are graduating. And I think when Dr. Ski left that day, I don't want to put words in, but I think when he left that day, he was really impressed. And every time he leaves this place, he's impressed with our leadership, with Dr. Bell as our superintendent, saying he's on the cutting edge, maybe not his words, but basically on the cutting, progressive. I hate the word progressive when it comes to politics, but when it comes to education, I think maybe we can use it. But Dr. Bell is a very progressive and leader, and I think that has a lot to say about our administration, our principals. Putting something like this in place is pretty powerful, and it is on the cutting edge. And so to see the exact tweet from Dr. Ski, I would recommend you going to our Facebook page and reading that from last week's post. It was good stuff.
That reminds me, back in May, Dr. Bell, there was, our high school was identified in Newsweek's rankings, and you had posted it. this identification process is based on Lebanon's high school standardized assessment scores. It was kind of like the initial process. Do we know where we stand at this point?
No, I haven't heard anything, and Josh hasn't heard anything at this point.
Okay. Do you know when we find that stuff out? Okay. Because I'm just curious to know where it ends, you know.
I brought that up. I brought that up last week, and I mentioned something this week. I brought that up because we've seen so much, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say it to Facebook, how bad our school is, and how bad our leadership is, how bad the board is, and sometimes they even start attacking our teachers. And I want the public to know, because I've been asked I had a person call me and say, why don't you start sharing the good things that are happening? This person wasn't believing all that they were hearing, things that they were reading. And so I thought we need to start sharing some things that are positive, because we have a lot of good things going on. I've been here 18 years. My kids have been in this district that many years. And if I wanted to, or if there was anything to pick apart, I could see it. But we've had great success with our family. And it's our parents. If our parents want what's best for the kids and are working with their children, they're going to make some good things happen with their own children. It's not all the school's responsibility, but I still stand proudly with who we have in position with our board. The decisions that have been made over the years have been good decisions. I don't care what people are saying, they many times don't have a clue as to what's really going on. And so when I had this parent call me and say, you need to start saying some things that are positive. We don't like to hear what we're hearing. And so a lot of things that we've heard and a lot of things that I've read are just damaging, but I'm very proud to be part of this district. I'm very proud to be to have sat on this board for 14 years, making the decisions that we've made, because we've come a long ways in the last, since I've been part of this school.
Dr. Bell, perhaps I'm jumping the gun, and I believe it's probably public. And I was not here last week, and I have not looked at the Facebook page, so that being all qualified, I know that we've had the conversation that you spoke to the president of PAC, and he complimented the school district on how well our students are doing there. Have you had that announcement? Have you made that announcement here?
Not really, but sure, that's no problem. Something that happens every year when HAC comes to us, they give us an analysis of how well Northern Lebanon students are doing in comparison to other students that they serve. And they do that in a variety of ways, and specifically they highlighted for me this time, and they said that oftentimes people talk about a student that needs to take a remedial course, and there's different levels of remediation that a college would offer to an individual student. Some not needed so much, some needed a lot, that type of a thing. And there's a comparison that's done across the students they serve. And they shared with me that Northern Lebanon, for the students that need remediation, meaning our students don't need remediation, they say we actually qualify more students to go right into their 101 classes, non-remediation classes. We have those, the HAC campus officer here has shared that with me, and I shared that with the board. But it kind of makes a little bit more of an impact when you hear, especially the math and the reading. We actually our students are doing 15% better I'm sorry, reading and writing specifically. I don't recall the math off the top of my head, but 14 and 15% better than the other students who are attending HAC. So the students are doing extremely well, and I think that's what I shared with you in the email to the rest of the board. And that's something that hats off to the students, the parents, the teachers, and the administration, and you as a board for making sure you have the quality programs in place for our kids to be successful.
I'd like to just point out, it's not only, I realize things sort of come from the top in the administration, but I also spread these accolades to the teaching staff, because without the teachers doing what they should be doing and doing it well on a daily basis, we would not be getting reports like that, and I congratulate the teaching staff on it.
I can also add to that. I have a cousin I won't mention names, but he went to Millersville, and now he transferred to Lebanon Valley, and he had 35 credits, some of them because of going to having hacked in our classrooms at the high school. And would you believe Lebanon Valley College took every hack credit and took minus 10 from Millersville? Would not take 10 of these Millersville credits, which just blew me away, because I would have never expected that. I would have thought the state school would have transferred in, and he did not. All the hack credits transferred in. So Lebanon Valley must think Hack's doing something right.
That was a lot of spin off of the superintendent's report. You did a really good job there, Dr. Bell. Any other questions for Dr. Bell before we move on? Okay, thank you for your report. So let's move on to the reports of our representatives. Dr. Martell, Career and Tech Center.
Okay, you have a newsletter from each summer at two places. The minutes are in the reports. Continuing on a monthly basis on the school year is back. We remain in negotiations with professional staff, the CPC. We have a resignation there. She's actually going to hack. She's going to be sorely missed more than all of that. And she's the director of our eating program. So it's tough to lose good people, but that's the game. And what else? Oh. We just went through the director's evaluation, and it's based on the new ADE evaluation system. You're all into a real eye-opener. It's kind of ours. It's very detailed. It's very onerous. It's very detailed. I think it's worthwhile, but it takes some time. So I'm just that's going to be coming down the pipe.
And I'll report for the IU13. You all received the report to the local board, and we too just want to use the evaluation, that we use a little bit of a different tool. We just evaluated our executive director, and very pleased to have him still on board with us. He's doing a great job. And he's the gentleman that I send you some of his reports, and I have another one to send to you guys. Well, Rachel, we still don't have you on yet, and so we haven't heard anything yet. Dave?
No report.
Steve, it looks like you handed something out to the
I did.
legislative report. Go for it.
I did. There's not a whole lot happening in Harrisburg. Of course, Republicans tried to send a stopgap spending measure to the governor. Of course, education wasn't part of that, but it doesn't look like it's going anywhere yet. But Dr. Bell has given to us this evening where the state has been approved for a waiver. Maybe he wants to explain that a little more for the SPP.
Sure, SPP is a school performance profile. If you didn't see today, the Governor Wolf announced that there was a waiver that we got from WE, meaning Pennsylvania Elementary and Secondary Education Act. It comes from the federal government where compliance needs to take place. One of the compliance factors is the SPP score. If you've seen that, it's a lot of different factors. But due to the challenges that they've had at the Department of Education from the PSSA scores that have been out there, that's